On April the 7th in 1788, in the chilly early morning mist, 70 Delaware Indians stood here among the trees, watching and waiting as the Ohio Company first floated down the river. The land was covered with an ancient primordial forest. In 6 days the settlers had cleared 6 acres of land. By 6 weeks later most of downtown Marietta was cleared. They planted 160 acres of corn. One man noted in his journal that the corn grew 9 inches every 24 hours for 2 or 3 days. The new settlement was at first called Adelphi, but on July the 2nd in 1788 the name was chosen Marietta, in honor of Marie Antoinette. That first year most of the settlers lived at the point. About 20 houses were built. The first road was cut. It was Front Street from the Ohio River to Washington Street and Fort Campus Marshes. The barracks for the single men was located here at the point. From the beginning Jonathan Haskell was in charge. Unofficially at first, and even though promoted to major and commander of Campus Marshes during the Indian Wars, Haskell still lived primarily at the point. During the Indian Wars of 1791 to 1795, the point was protected by a picketed barricade of spiked logs. The early business district was on Ohio Street, which runs parallel with the Ohio River. Captain Daniel Greene's store was located here. The first block of Front Street in early Marietta was residential. Front Street from Butler to Putnam was a grassy common. But eventually, beginning about 1850, the business district expanded along Front toward Putnam. That early April morning in 1788, a fog hung over the surface of the water. Overhanging trees blocked the view of the entrance to the Muskingum River, and the Ohio Company floated by. The watching soldiers of Fort Harmar hailed the passing boats, waded into the water, attached ropes, and hauled the crafts back up to this spot, which marks the first landing. If the Greene family had traveled through Marietta in 1908, they could have stayed across the street at the St. Cloud Hotel. The Lafayette was then the Bellevue. The Norwood Hotel was located at 2nd and Greene Street. The St. James was across the street at 104 Butler. Or they might have preferred the Wakefield at 3rd and Putnam. The Pioneer Hotel was on 2nd Street. The St. Elmo was at 2nd and Scammell. And last, the choice might have been the St. Charles, which was located directly behind the Bellevue, or the Lafayette as we know it today. There were also 14 restaurants in Marietta from which to choose. Traveling long distance 100 years ago meant either taking a train or a steamboat. 1 block up on 2nd Street was the train station. The train ran from Cleveland to Marietta. To travel from Marietta to Newport, the out-of-town traveler could have taken a steamboat or the train or hired a horse and carriage. If they chose to go by train, they would have to cross the new Williamstown Bridge. It was just 5 years old in 1908. In Williamstown, they would catch the train north and disembark at Vaucluse. They would then take the ferry across the river. At Newport there were 3 or 4 hotels available for the traveler. rivers we see today are nothing like the rivers of 200 years ago. The Ohio was 20 feet lower than the Ohio of today. Back then, the rivers became unnavigable 2 times a year. In the summer, the river almost dried up. In places, one could wade across. To bring any boat down the river often meant carrying the vessel across sandbars. The water was sometimes so clear you could see the bottom. Even so, the pioneers caught catfish that weighed in at 100 pounds and sturgeon of 40 pounds. In the winter, the river froze over and all the river travel stopped for several weeks. The lock system began on the Muskingum River in 1840. It was to control the river for traffic. Finally, in the later part of the 19th century, work on a system of locks and dams commenced on the Ohio River. The lockmaster's house was built in 1890. In 1908, the lockmaster's house was the only building on this side of the river. The post office was built 1 year later and the armory after that. Daniel Greene was the second child and first son of John and Mary Greene. Born in Warwick, Rhode Island in 1774, he was in his 22nd year when his parents and siblings came to the Northwest Territory in 1796. There is no record that he came west with his family. He was probably